Hello, Game of Thrones fans. Andrew Dowd, Theories and Musings on episode 5. Follow up to the special guest star interview I had last night with my sister, the grand motivator to this channel and these thoughts and theories I present to you now. So, episode 5, The Bells. What can we say about this episode? Great episode in the sense of just utter awe and disappointment in, the flip of Daenerys, but, also the satisfaction that there is, some justice in the world of Westeros. However homicidal, genocidal the collateral damage was. I think we all kind of saw this coming. I mean, this is been developed over, this entire season is, Daenerys losing faith in herself and losing the trust and faith of the people around her, specifically from Westeros. All the people from Essos backing Dany all the way. But overall, I think it was a bit of a disappointing episode in total because there were so many little things that I think a lot of the fan base was hoping for. But let's do a quick recap and then we'll get into it. So back on Dragonstone, Daenerys is licking her wounds from the loss of Rhaegal and the ambush at Dragonstone by Euron Greyjoy. And then the loss of Missandei as well, her best friend and confidant, and one of the first slaves she ever freed, getting taken from her. So it's a solace moment, and it's also a moment of trepidation. You see Tyrion, sneaking up behind Dany, looking very concerned about what's happening, and rightfully so. I mean, she's on a brink where she feels isolated, she feels alone. It's just basically her and Drogon being the only other living thing that she can trust. And I think that's why you see such a powerful strike of King's Landing later in the episode. But immediately you see that Tyrion is throwing Varys under the bus. And I think it's really interesting because he is as much at fault in this secret coming out as Varys is, and Sansa. But, he has a very intelligent way of getting out of that, which is, I'm your hand. I need to know these things, and Sansa trusts me. But he continually says, like, it was a mistake. And I ask for forgiveness. And, all you need to do is ask most of the time. And, the important thing is asking and then and being accountable for what you did or what you've done. And he knows this. And he's been banking on this from Daenerys from day one. Make a mistake, own it, apologize for it, move on. That's life. However, I think we're getting to a point where it's getting bad. And so, the death of Varys. Obviously, Varys talks to Jon, and Jon flat out says, "No, I don't want it. F off." To which I think Varys expected that. Hence, why all the letters going out from Varys, exposing the secret of Jon and creating more turmoil, future turmoil. And so I think this is just perpetuating the Game of Thrones. And so just before Varys is burned alive by dragon fire, Tyrion admits that it was him that ousted him, and he admits that he hopes he's wrong. But the hand of Tyrion on Varys, if you look at Varys' expression, I think it's the first time that there's ever been a physical contact of some kind of fraternity between them. But I almost feel like it's an admission of Tyrion to Varys that he was right, and I'm sorry you have to die. I feel like it's almost like an unspoken omission of guilt that yes, you're right, and I hate to see you die for this. As a look at his face was just one of, really, you got to be kidding me. So if Tyrion does know that this is going to happen, all his other actions, make sense. Him releasing Jaime, him trying to force Daenerys to promise to, when she hears the surrender bells, that they'll call off the strike, call off the battle. And he makes Jon sure aware that, when those bells go off, you guys stop fighting and let it be. So he's setting it up. Because I think that if maybe he believes that Daenerys will stop, but he can't seriously expect her to walk away from this whole buildup, everything, coming to King's Landing, taking the Iron Throne, especially after her closest confidant and best friend gets her head cut off by the evil woman she was. He couldn't expect her to stop, especially from killing Cersei. That's why he sends Jaime in there. But Jaime has a bit of a character recession, shall we say. Going for full redemption back to the old Jaime that he was, which is he loves Cersei and he's going to go and he's going to try and save her or die with her. Which is romantic in some senses, but it's also messed up in others. I've heard a lot of complaints and a lot of criticism about the writing of this episode, and how it feels like this is basically just everything's kind of rushed. And in some, I agree with it in some sense that there's a lot that's happened over the last 2 episodes alone, and they're trying to cram it all in. But I did feel like there was, I was left wanting in the end here for certain things to happen. But anyway, Varys is gone. Tyrion is gotten Daenerys to promise to surrender, or promise to stop fighting as soon as the surrender bells happen. And Tyrion's doing everything in his power to make sure that those bells go off. But getting to the actual assault, was it me or was it almost too easy? I think it proves just how valuable a dragon rider is on a dragon. Because when Rhaegal was killed by the scorpion, one shot, boom, right in the side, and then in the neck, it was toast. I think it proves that having a dragon rider, the dragon rider can adjust and make these movements and plan much better than the dragon on its own. And Drogon being much bigger and much faster also his health. But the coming out of the sky, coming out of the sun, standard aerial warfare tactic, being used since fighter planes existed. You come from the sun, they're blinded by it, they can't see you coming. But she takes the dive technique, gaining speed, and then taking them out. Did I think that it was just a little too easy? Yeah. Honestly, with that many scorpions and Lisas on the wall and on the ships, I'm really surprised there wasn't more bolts, whizzing by her head. Really, I only saw one that came close, and that was from Euron. But needless to say, one foul swoop takes out the entire defenses of the city, takes out the Golden Company like that. I mean, talk about a weak buildup. I'm sorry, a great buildup to just the weakest ending. Um, I thought that was just a bit of a letdown, to be perfectly honest. Um, However, such is life. It doesn't always work the way that you want it to work, and often the things that are hyped up the most um, don't meet what's promised. So the fighting begins. Golden Company's taken out. Defenses are down immediately within minutes. Um, you would think that Cersei understands that the battle is pretty much lost, but is it the arrogance of Cersei or the stubbornness that keeps her there? We'll never know. So they enter King's Landing. The bells start to sound. I love that scene where the Lannister army starts throwing down their swords and the bells start going off. The intensity of that moment was just like, it was almost a moment of relief. And then you see Daenerys. You're like, wait a minute, we're only halfway through this episode. What's going to happen? And then snap goes the dragon. It is an incredible arc, and there's a line that I love, and I think it's from the Batman series, which is you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. And Daenerys has personified that, but she's fulfilling the last words of Missandei Dracarys. To a T. But the genocide that's happened, it's clear that she is full tyrant now, and fear is her mode. Now, could Jon have stopped this by, giving in to Daenerys? Him and his bloody honor is just ruining things left right there. I think there's one thing that this show is had from the very beginning, is that honor screws a lot of things up in this world of Westeros. Honor, as much as it's the moral high road, going to get everybody killed. So Daenerys torches King's Landing, kills 1 million people, or close to. And just burns it to the ground. Now, my biggest question is, if King's Landing is torched, it's not going to be the capital anymore. They're going to make Dragonstone the capital of Westeros? I don't think so. It's on an island. It makes me think that Winterfell becomes the new capital. And so that makes, just speaking, it's 1 million people. That's like, say, I want to say it's like a quarter of the population of Westeros is gone. And so the majority population of Westeros remaining is either in the north, probably, well, although most of them were probably killed by the whites, or it's in the Riverlands. So anyway, it's hard to wrap my head around this exactly what transpired, because it's a complete change for Daenerys. It sets it up for next episode, Jon versus Daenerys. But let's just recap who died. Cersei, Jaime, weak ending, although romantic and great in their own right. Cersei deserved a far more dramatic death, and something far more painful that she would have deserved. But there we are. Quadruple, spectacular fight. It was always interesting to me that the Mountain always had the high ground in that fight, in that scenario, and Sandor gave it. But we all knew that was going to be a suicide mission, and even the Hound said it. leading up to it and telling Arya Stark. And that's one thing that irked me, how quickly Arya changed her mind. They're in the Red Keep. They're in the castle. They're in the lair. They got there after all that journey. And then the Hound says, "No, if you come with me, you're going to die." And she's just like, "You're right, thank you," and then moves on. Now, is that a switch of her character? Is it something she needed to hear from the Hound herself in order to make that decision? Where does that leave her now? Because for the rest of the episode, she's running around King's Landing trying to survive. But I do find it. I read something interesting that they've equated Arya to death herself, and in being death, everyone she's around dies, which is quite true. I mean, you look at the mother and daughter that actually saved her life from being trampled on in the swing. They get toasted. Sandor Clegane gets toasted. Or not toasted. Well, he does get toasted. They fall through the wall and into a pit of fire. I mean, there's a bit of poetry in that. That the thing he fears the most is eventually the thing that he does die within. Although I'm pretty sure the fall would have killed him first. And so, the Hound, the Mountain. He's dead. We're glad he's dead. Kyber, what a way to go. Killed by his own monster. So Frankenstein. I thought that was spectacular. Who else? You notice that Davos always survives, no matter what. I never see him doing actually any fighting. But, he always seems to survive, so I'm wondering about that. But in the end, King's Landing is burned to the ground. The remaining players are Jon, Davos, Tyrion, Daenerys, Grey Worm, and Arya. And Arya finds a white horse and walks out of the King's Landing riding that white horse. And I've heard a lot of comparisons. It's so biblical, things like that. No. But the question is, where is she going next? And it makes me think that she's going to head back to Winterfell. And maybe back to Gendry. But where does it all go now? So it's going to be Dragon versus Wolf. That's how this is going to end. Now, who's going to survive? Who's going to die? I think Dany kills Jon. I think that Arya or Tyrion team up to kill Dany. And then Tyrion takes the throne. However, to my sister's theory last night, that all of this is cyclical. That with Gendry potentially taking the throne, and we're all back to square one. Baratheon's back on the throne, and the game continues. I do like the idea that the game continues because the game never stops. The Game of Thrones is continual, like they said. It's a wheel, and Daenerys hasn't broken the wheel. Daenerys is full on just on top of the wheel right now. And so I think that it would be a fitting ending where Daenerys is either on the throne or Tyrion's on the throne. And the game continues. The Game of Thrones and backhanded tactics, drama, death, power are all these things that are part of this game, and it never stops. The game doesn't have an end. Cersei said in the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die. The fact is, you never win. And eventually, Valar Morghulis, all men must die. So I think that could be a poetic ending. But anyway, that's my rant for today. I know it's a little all over the place, but all in all, kind of disappointed with this episode. I mean, it was awesome, but at the same time, it was gut-wrenching. But I'm looking forward to Dany v. Jon showdown and the eventual outcome of the future of Westeros in the Game of Thrones. Hope you enjoyed.